Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Tuning into the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kendrick, and I want to tell you a little bit about my morning. I think this is really interesting, right? I've never done this before in the morning, but I don't know. You go ahead. I can't obviously hear what you're saying, but, tell me if you think I'm weird. Go ahead, talk to your radio, talk to however it is that you're listening to this, and go ahead and tell me whether or not this is weird. So I woke up this morning at 7 in the morning. I did not have a good night's sleep, but I woke up at 7. I decided, nope, this is not going to happen. And so I hit snooze on my alarm. I eventually ended up getting up at 7:40 in the morning. So I got a little bit more sleep, but, not enough to really make a difference. But I got up, got dressed, went downstairs. And then instead of making eggs or bacon or hash browns like a normal person and having a normal breakfast, I instead went into my fridge and I decided to get, Mexican food. And I'm not gonna lie, it was delicious. It was wonderful, and my taste buds had never felt more alive. It tasted delicious. It was a great way to start my morning. If you have not started your morning with takeout Mexican food, I strongly recommend that you do, because it was simply wonderful. But you guys are here to listen to football, not listen to my weird eating habits. So anyways, let's go ahead and let's get into it. I have a few topics I want to talk about today. I want to talk about Cam Newton going to New England, my overall reaction to it, how I think it's going to affect their season, and then how I believe that it affects Kaepernick in his current free agent status. I want to talk about the possibility of there being no NFL and no college football season. Talk a little bit about the NBA and what it is that they're doing, and about why it is that the NFL can't do what the NBA has been doing. Talk a little about that. It's a reality that I really do not want to have come to fruition, but I do have to be real, and it is a thought that I do have to entertain. I then want to move on to Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, talk a little bit about them drafting Jordan Love, talk about the contract that they just gave Jordan Love, and talk about how I believe it's going to impact Aaron Rodgers' future with the Packers and the short-term relationship with them, and then overall how the Packers have kind of handled their time with Aaron Rodgers. And then lastly, my final topic of today. Lists are always fun. Lists are always fun to engage with. There's always going to be disagreements. There will be agreements. They're just really fun to see. And it's interesting to see people's thought processes, see their reasoning for putting people in the places that they did. I'm going to give you guys my top 10 entities in the NFL that this NFL season means the most to. And the reason why I said entities is because I didn't want to say players, and I didn't want to say coaches, and I didn't want to say, I wanted to give a more general term, because I am going to be considering everybody, alright? Not Roger Goodell, not the owners, because that'd be really, really cheap. It's obvious why it matters to them. But, so that'll be the rundown of the show. Anyways, let's go ahead and let's get into Cam Newton to New England. So, my immediate reaction to seeing Cam Newton get picked up to the Patriots, my first thought, I cannot wait to watch Patriot games. I gotta be honest with you guys, I wasn't looking forward to watching Jarrett Stidham. I didn't watch him in college. I know that he had a good season in college, and then he went to Auburn, and it was a team that had a bunch of NFL talent on it, and he just didn't really perform well. I wasn't looking forward to seeing Jarrett Stidham. I've kind of seen Jarrett Stidham before. That was Tom Brady. It was Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Castle. I've seen that before. I didn't really care to see that again. But Cam Newton, that's a different animal. My second thought that I had come to my mind was, man, you go from Tom Brady to Cam Newton, talk about night and day. And I'm not talking about the skin color, I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the way that they play. Tom Brady is a pick you apart passer who just understands defenses and just is a pinpoint accurate passer, and he will pick you apart. It's death by 1,000 cuts, right? 11 play drives, 10 play drives. Now, while that is part of the reason why they were talking about how he got sick and tired of being in New England, he wants some quicker drives. That is the kind of passer that he's always been. Cam Newton, more of a long ball thrower, more of the home run hit, not really the short pick you apart passer, but when he tucks and runs that football, he can mow over a corner, mow over a safety, mow over a linebacker. Defensive ends, maybe not so much, but everyone else, look out. Cam Newton is 6'6", 240 probably right now, and that dude can absolutely move. He is an athlete. The last thing I thought, my final reaction to it was, why now? Why exactly are they grabbing Cam Newton now? Now, keep in mind, this was the same day that it was announced that New England was being fined by the league $1.1 million, and they were going to lose a third-round pick. And everybody knows that Bill Belichick loves his third-round picks. Now, immediately when I think about Cam Newton to New England, I'm not one of these people who's going to sit here and say, well, Cam Newton, he can't get along with Bill Belichick, it's just, Cam Newton, he's such a personality, or Cam Newton, he's not the passer that Tom Brady is. There's no way it can work. I'm not gonna say that. Look, I love this. I want to see what this looks like. If there's anybody, even though people, they consider Bill Belichick to be probably the most rigid coach in the NFL, if there's anything that he has shown, it is that they build a system for what the player does best. They built a system that Tom Brady could succeed in. When Tom Brady got hurt, they built a system that Matt Castle could succeed in. When Tom Brady was suspended, they built a system that Jimmy Garoppolo could succeed in. And then when he got hurt, they did it for Jacoby Brissett. If there's one thing that Bill has shown, he doesn't want to just put a player in a system and make them do something that they're not. He wants you to do your job. Do what you're best at. He's going to ask Cam to be Cam. Run over some people, throw some long balls, run for some first downs. Cam is going to do what he did in Carolina. Will he maybe bring the same attitude as in the taunting and the celebrations? Maybe he won't. I have absolutely no clue. I know that Cam at this point though, seeing his posts online, he is business. Cam, you saw the post. He's working out. He's saying, they gave up on me. Carolina gave up on me. And speaking of Carolina, I really think they did Cam a disservice with the way that they cut him. You got the head coach saying Cam Newton's gonna be our guy. We love Cam. We want him to be our guy. And then you cut him and you sign Teddy Bridgewater. It's just, I don't know. Look, I understand there's the coach talk. I understand that not everybody tells the truth all the time, but it doesn't mean I like it anymore. I still think it was really crummy what they did to him. I just feel like they could have handled it differently. I hated how they treated him. But for those of you who aren't familiar with Cam Newton, if you haven't really looked, let me just give you a little bit of a rundown of who Cam Newton is, right? Cam Newton, 3-time Pro Bowler, former first-team All-Pro, an MVP, an Offensive Player of the Year, a Rookie of the Year. He's the first passer, this is just some of his accolades. He's the first passer in NFL history with 4,000 yards passing and 10,000 yards, and 10 rushing touchdowns in a season. He's the first player with 4,000 yards passing and 500 rushing yards in a season. He has the most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in NFL history. He has the most games with a passing and rushing touchdown in NFL history. Cam Newton, when he's right, when he's balling, when he has the pieces around him, he is a stud. Now, he will never ever be a QBR darling, right? His passer rating is never gonna look like an Aaron Rodgers, like a Tom Brady's, like a Russell Wilson's, because he's not just a passer. You need to let him run. It's the same thing with Lamar, right? You can't ask Cam Newton to not run. That's like asking Lamar to not run. We've seen what happens when you ask a quarterback to not play their game. Marcus Mariota. What happened to Mariota with Tennessee? They asked him to be a pocket quarterback and they didn't want him to run. That basically, there's a chance, right? Now, he's with Oakland now. Or not with Oakland, I'm sorry. He's with the Las Vegas Raiders. I think there's a chance Mariota's career could be revived. I don't know how long Derek Carr is going to last there. There's a chance it could be revived. But his career with Tennessee was killed because they wouldn't let him be him. See what happens when they let Lamar be Lamar? He wins the MVP. See what happens when they do let Cam be Cam? He wins the MVP. You gotta let these guys be them. So to everybody who's sitting here thinking, oh, well, Cam, he just won't fit in because Bill Belichick said he's not the passer. His career completion percentage is sub 60%. It's like 59.5. I mean, he's like right on the edge of 60%. Obviously, it's not what you want. But the thing is, his weapon isn't just his arm. It's his legs. Now, as much as I liked the signing of Cam, I do have to be honest. I don't know how much this is going to impact their season, right? New England has the toughest schedule in the NFL based on the records of teams last year. So, I mean, it is the definition of on paper, they have the most difficult schedule. Obviously, teams like the Texans, you could probably say that they got worse. Teams like the Jets, I don't know, you could maybe say they got a bit worse. I don't know. Miami, are they better? Are they worse? I have no clue. No, the Cardinals, you could say they probably got better. But again, it's on paper. We won't know until we see these teams play. But I took the liberty of analyzing their schedule. And I decided to kind of do a win-loss thing. So I'm going to give you guys what their schedule is, and I'm going to highlight which games I believe they will win and lose. And this is under the pretense that Cam Newton is the week 1 starter. Because I've seen the reports that Bill Belichick, he loves Stidham. He loves Stidham. And he still has plans to make him their week 1 starter. But why would you bring Cam in then? Just to be the backup? Before I get into the schedule, let me just say this. I have heard throughout my whole time of watching sports and sports shows that when you have a young quarterback, you don't bring in a celebrity backup who is accomplished. Because it can ruin their confidence, it adds way too much pressure to them, and you can ultimately ruin them. That's why with Mitch Trubisky, his first few backups, none of them had a chance to take his job. Nick Foles is now the backup. And it's considered an open competition that Mitch has to win. In Cleveland, they brought Case Keenum. Now, while he's not the celebrity backup, it is added pressure to Baker because Stefanski, their new head coach, worked with Keenum before. And they had great success. So now Baker does have to look over his shoulder. Now you look. In New England, even though Bill might say, Stidham, I love you. You're our guy. I love you, man. You just brought in a guy who won the MVP in 2015. And you're going to tell me that Stidham is just going to sit. Now, if Stidham is a man about it, if he is mature, I mean, if he doesn't get rattled by this, then you might have something with Stidham. But I think it's interesting. I've always heard part of the excuse why Kaepernick couldn't be brought back in the league, he'd be a celebrity backup. That's added pressure. That's added questions. You don't want that. Well, New England just brought in Cam when your starter that you plan on going into the season with has only attempted 4 career passes. So, I don't know. But anyways, to their schedule, right? So they open the season against the Dolphins at home. I'm going to go ahead and give him a win right there because I believe that Bill Belichick having the whole freaking offseason to prepare for an opener against the Dolphins and it's at home and I have no clue who the starter for the Dolphins is going to be. I'll go ahead and I'll give him a win there. Then they go to the Seahawks. I'm going to say that's a loss. Then they take on the Raiders at home. I'm going to give them a win. So already through 3 weeks, 2-1 with Cam as your quarterback, it looks pretty good, right? Excuse me. They then go to the Chiefs. Yeah, it's a loss. I don't think there's any debate right there. Then they're going to go home and they're going to take on the Broncos. Now, a lot of people are really, really high on the Broncos and they think that the Broncos could be one of the sleeper teams this season. I don't know. I really, really don't know what to think about that. Bill Belichick, he has a history of eating young quarterbacks alive, especially the first time that they ever play him. Drew Lock hasn't faced that monster. So, I just don't think I can give that to Drew Lock. I'm going to go ahead and say that they beat the Broncos. They then take on the Niners at home. That's a loss. They then go to the Bills, and I might throw up by saying this, but I think they're going to lose to the Bills at the Bills. Oh my God. Josh Allen has never played well against Bill Belichick. Every game I watch Josh Allen play against the Patriots, it's a headache. It makes me rip my hair out, and it's just so damn frustrating to watch him. But I'm going to go ahead and say that they get their act together for that one game, and they knock off New England. They then go to the Jets. I think that's going to be an easy win. I just don't trust Adam Gase. So through 8 weeks, they're 4-4. Pretty good. They then go face the Ravens at home. That's a loss. I think they're going to get blown out. They go to Houston. Even though they lost DeAndre Hopkins, I just think Deshaun Watson is special. I think they do still have enough weapons to compete well, and I think they will lose at Houston. This game is a bit iffy. They take on the Cardinals at home. This game, I believe, can go either way, because again, Kyler Murray, it'd be his first time facing New England, I think. Yeah, his first time facing New England, and the only reason why it is I think that the Cardinals will win this game is because Bill Belichick's defenses do have a problem with mobile quarterbacks. Kyler is a smaller quarterback. He can really throw that football, and he can run. So I do believe they'll lose that game. They then go to the Chargers. I think that they will lose that game. Now, again, this is another game I have circled along with the Cardinals. I have 2 games circled. This is the second game. I think there's a chance the Chargers lose this game because I don't know if I trust Taylor. Taylor, even when he was with the Bills, it's not like he was lighting the world on fire, and it's not like he was beating New England. So I just don't know. Now, he has more weapons with the Chargers, and the Chargers have a great defense, a lot of great pieces. Their secondary is insane. So I do think that he has a better chance to beat New England, but nonetheless, I do have them losing to the Chargers. They then go to the Rams. I think that's going to be a relatively easy win for the Rams. They then go to the Dolphins, and just kind of to continue the tradition of Miami, for whatever reason, beating New England in Miami, I'm going to say they're going to lose that game to the Dolphins. They then take on the Bills at home. That is a win. And they then take on the Jets at home, and I believe that is a win. So I have them finishing the season with a 6-10 record. Obviously, they have the 2 games circled. It could be 8-8. I am leaning with 6-10, and that is with Cam Newton being the full-time starter. And it's not because I don't think Cam is good enough. It's because who does he have to throw to? Julian Edelman? James White, their running back? Mohamed Sanu? N'Keal Harry? Who is their tight end? I mean, really, who was their tight end? There's no Gronk. Gronk came out of retirement to go play in Tampa. They didn't exactly address any big needs. Their offensive line, they lost Dante Scarnecchia. The offensive line, though, was pretty much intact. So, I guess there's that to look at, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to be any fault of Cam's. I think them going 6-10 with Cam, I think as long as Cam, if he can do this, now will he stay there long term? I don't know. But I think if Cam can do that and be a good soldier with the team and be a competent starter, put up good numbers, be competitive, then I do believe that Cam, maybe he could get franchised by the team. Maybe Bill Belichick would consider making him their long-term quarterback, or maybe he would just end up getting moved on to another team. Who knows? But to get into the last section of this talk, at least, how does this affect Kaepernick? Well, here's the thing, right? So many people have been saying that Kaepernick needs to be signed. And I'm one of these people who has also said Kaepernick needs to be signed. I have remained, my position has remained the same since he's been out of the league after the 2016 season. Kaepernick is good enough to be on the team. But obviously, because of his political stance, he wasn't on the team. But here was the thing, though, right? How were you going to sign Kaepernick when Cam Newton was still available? Cam Newton has been playing in the league. Kaepernick hasn't played in 3 years. You could not, as a team, justify signing Kaepernick before Cam Newton gets signed. Well, here's the thing now. Cam Newton has now been signed. I'm sorry, you heard something right there. I accidentally hit my mic. Cam Newton has now been signed, so he's off the market. That means that unless you're going to go drag Matt Moore out of retirement again, or you're going to go drag Josh McCown out of retirement again, that means it's Kaepernick's time. So who are some teams that could really use Kaepernick? Who are some teams that could use a quarterback who fits today's game, being mobile, who has Super Bowl playoff experience and success? Not a Super Bowl win, but he went to the Super Bowl, was a throw away from winning it. You could say it was pass interference. I would probably lean with it was pass interference, but the referees, they let him play like they probably should have. And more to the point though, who are some of the teams that could use him? Well, I would think about teams that have a chance to go to the Super Bowl right now, who have a Super Bowl level quarterback, where if that quarterback was to go down, their season's over. And 3 teams come to my mind. I think of Seattle. I think of the Vikings, which in Minneapolis, the PR that would mean for that city would be incredible. And lastly, the Kansas City Chiefs. On all of these teams, maybe except for the Vikings, there'd probably be those people who would say start Kaepernick over Kirk. I'm not one of those people, but some people might say it. But if he was to go back up Russell Wilson, no one's going to say he should start over Russell Wilson. No one would say he would start over Patrick Mahomes. And who are the team's backups? It's Geno Smith in Seattle. It's Chad Henne in Kansas City. I mean, the backup in Minnesota is... Is it Sean Mannion still? I watched Sean Mannion in the preseason. It's not pretty. So, I mean, those are the 3 teams that come off the top of my head that I think could really use, Kaepernick. Andy Reid, obviously, he has brought in a quarterback before after a few years of not playing, Michael Vick. The situation between him and Kaepernick are very, very different. Kaepernick did nothing wrong. He had a political stance that was peaceful. He was proven right. Also, let's just go ahead and state that. He was proven right in his stance, which is why the NFL apologized. So those are the 3 teams that I do believe could and should think about bringing in Kaepernick. The Chargers, Anthony Lynn came out and said that he definitely has Kaepernick on their workout list. That's just kind of the problem though right now with COVID, is you can't work anybody out. So they have no clue what he really looks like physically. They have no clue how he looks out there throwing the football. The last piece of video I think anyone has is that tryout thing that the NFL hosted for him that I think was just a sham and just a publicity stunt. But yeah, those are the 3 teams I believe that could really use Kaepernick. I think if any of those teams were to use him, he would solidify their backup positions. And again, I really don't think there wouldn't be any competition there. I would love to see him get back in the NFL, and I believe that Cam Newton being signed, it was what needed to happen in order for teams to be able to justify signing Kaepernick. Now, do I think he'll get picked up? I don't know. I really don't know. He's been out of the league for 3 years. I don't know if a team can bring themselves to bring him in. There's a lot of coach talk. Pete Carroll, he's been doing a great job of doing some coach talk, saying, well, when we brought in Kaepernick, I thought he was a good player. I thought he would deserve to be a starter. That's why I didn't want to bring him in as a backup. It just wasn't the right. I don't remember exactly why it is that we didn't. What are you talking about, Pete? What are you talking about? You didn't know why you didn't bring in Kaepernick? Yes, you do. You didn't bring him in because of his political stance. That's why you didn't bring him in. So, I mean, will Seattle bring him in? I don't know. They really like Geno, and they said they really like Geno being behind Russell. Well, yeah, because he's not a threat to Russell. Would Kaepernick be a threat to Russell? No, I don't think so. But, man, if Russell gets hurt, Geno Smith is not saving their season. If Patrick Mahomes gets hurt, Chad Henne is not going to save their season. I was actually okay with them signing Matt Moore because I thought Matt Moore was a really decent backup. I saw what he did in Miami. I thought he was a decent backup. And then as for Minnesota, do I need to say anything? Sean Mannion. And it's Minneapolis. Again, just the PR of it all, I think it would be I think it would be incredible if they brought Cap in. Anyways. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the possibility of there being no football no NFL, no college, no nothing, or the chance of there being an abbreviated season. That up next.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. In the last topic, we talked about Cam Newton getting picked up to New England. I talked about my general reaction to it all, how I thought that the fit would work, how I thought it would impact the Patriots season, and I talked a little bit about Kaepernick and how it is that this has affected his free agency, with him now being really the only viable quarterback to even be an option on the market, unless you were going to grab somebody else out of retirement. But anyways, we're going to shift gears now into the harsh reality of 2020 and the harsh reality of sports and the possibility of football, whether it be college or the NFL, not being able to happen, or the chances of the seasons actually just being shortened. Again, like I said, this is a reality I really hope doesn't happen. By all accounts, the NFL has said that they are going to play this season no matter what. They have been steadfast in that. Their position has not changed, and at the moment, the season is still projected to start within a month, month and a half months or something like that. I can't, off the top of my head, I cannot remember. But they have shortened the preseason down to 2 games. I'm fine with that. I don't even think the preseason should be 4 games in general. You're just really leaving it to chance for people to get hurt. I think 2 games is just what it should be in general. Players have always said that, they don't need the 4 games. They think it's pointless. It's just a money grab for the NFL. Now, will the NFL actually shorten it permanently to 2 games? Probably not. Who knows? But the NBA has something that they're doing called the bubble. Now, to give you guys a rundown of what happened to the NBA with COVID, Rudy Gobert, a player for the Utah Jazz, one of their star players, he ended up contracting the virus. Later on, I think the same day, maybe within the hour or the next day, then it was announced that Donovan Mitchell, their young superstar, he ended up getting the virus as well. He and Gobert are now not talking anymore. Apparently, Donovan Mitchell is just fed up with Rudy, with how he handled everything, and that he's just done with him. It was then announced later that there were a total of 5 members of the Utah Jazz that all had the coronavirus, and then as the reports started to come out, players that they had faced within the week also had the virus. More players started testing positive for the virus, and it just shut down the NBA. It shut down sports all over the place. And because there was so much we didn't know about this virus, we all just kind of had to sit around and wait. And we waited and we waited and we waited for sports to come back. And then finally the NBA had this plan. And it was to do a bubble down in Orlando where players would players that were either right on the outside of the playoffs or teams that were already in the playoffs would all get to go down to Orlando. They would all be put in these hotels, and they would be down there for a month first by themselves. And then I believe it's in the second month, they are allowed to bring family down, kids down, their wives, whoever it is that they want to bring down, they're allowed to bring down. But then there's a period there where they can't see each other because everyone has to be tested, and you have to test negative for the coronavirus for a certain amount of time. And this is just one of those things where the bubble is a great idea, but it only works really with the NBA, because per roster, there's only 17 players, right? It's not like the NFL, where it's 53 people per NFL roster. And again, that is excluding staff. This is just players. So it's easier to do this with the NBA. I mean, what does it take? What is that? That is, do the math on that. It's in 17 times 3. But yeah, it's about 3 times the amount of players on an NFL roster. I mean, it would take 3 NBA teams to make up an NFL roster. So you understand why the bubble is more doable for the NBA than it would be for the NFL. I would love for there to be something that the NFL could take from the NBA, but I just don't know if it's possible. When you look at the NFL, though, here's some of the scary math of this, right? So, on top of having 53 people per team, if you take in all the staff, there's about 200 people per team. It takes 2 of these teams per game. So per game, 400 people right there. That is excluding cameramen. That's excluding sideline reporters. That is excluding announcers. That's just the team. So right then and so even if you take all those people, there's probably 500 people, but we're going to stick with the 400 for this math I did. So 200 people per team, 2 teams per game, that's 400 people. 16 games a week. So do the math there. 400 times 16. That's 6,400 people getting together every single week. Now, of course, it's spread around the country, but that's also the thing. It's spread around the country. We don't know what's going on. These players are not all quarantining themselves. I mean, good grief, remember the article about Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott throwing a party? And it was released to TMZ, and of course they denied it and they said it was a small gathering, but whatever. And there's NFL players who have tested positive for the virus. Ezekiel Elliott, Von Miller, who has asthma. Which is, that's the scary part, right? If you have a respiratory issue already, like Von Miller, getting COVID could kill you. Now, thankfully, he no longer has it. He said there was a point in time where his breathing became a bit difficult, but he survived. Happy for that. Kareem Jackson, another guy who got the virus, and he said there was 7 players on the Cowboys that tested positive, and then on Houston, multiple players tested positive. I mean, it's crazy, right? But to get back to this math, so 6,400 people per week. 17 weeks in the regular season. So do that math. 6,400 people gather a week. 17 weeks. You could essentially say 108,800 people per regular season get together where they are around a field that is a high collision sport with sweaty men tackling each other, jumping on each other, pulling each other to the ground, whatever it is. There's spit, there's sweat, there's blood. The chances of somebody getting sick there is real. And let's just say, right? Let's just say Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, somebody goes to the store, they're wearing a mask, say they get coughed. I don't know. They could even be asymptomatic. And just say that they cough on a teammate, they cough on a player on another team, and then they take it to their teammates, and then they take it home to their kids and to their family. This could be catastrophic. Are you going to tell me that, let's just say 5 weeks into the season, you've got, 32 teams, right? You've got, say, 7-8 people per team that all have COVID? Are you seriously going to sit there and tell me that they're just going to continue the season? There's no freaking way. There's no way that they can continue the season. And I saw this crazy article, right? There was an article posted by Pro Football Talk. And let me just read to you some of the reaction to this article. So some teams are thinking about flying to and from road contests on the day of the game with no hotel stay. So you want San Francisco, they're going to go play the Jets in week 2, I believe. You're telling me San Francisco, and I'm not saying this is San Francisco particularly that is saying this, but You're telling me San Francisco is gonna fly to the Jets, the other side of America, and then fly back the same day? You're gonna get players hurt. Let me read you some of the reactions from players to this. Reggie Ragland, who's with Detroit, he just replied and said, dead. James White with the Patriots, he just replied with an emoji that said, no. Melvin Gordon, he said, lol, if they don't cut that out. You have Eric Ebron of the Steelers, he said, whole team gonna be on IR. Tyrann Mathieu with the Chiefs said, hell nah. That is just not doable. And seriously, there are across-country trips happen all the time in the NFL, and you're going to tell me that these teams are going to fly to and from the game like that? It just wouldn't make logistical sense. That would be murder on these guys. Now, if it was, Seattle going to the Niners, that's a more doable flight, right? It wouldn't be that terrible. But still, is it necessary? I mean, maybe given this climate, maybe it is. Maybe it's just what has to happen, right? We are not living in the same world right now. Precautions are necessary. People, just wear your masks. What is with this group of people that are anti-mask? Masks are not political. But yet somehow these people have turned masks into a political statement. They're saying it's my body, my choice. They're taking that mantra. It's my body, my choice. Oh God. Okay, whatever. Clemson, 30 players tested positive. Michigan, multiple players test positive. All over the country. These kids these are college kids, right? And I say kids, they're adults obviously, but these are young, some 18, 19, 20-year-old kids who are testing positive. I've seen what this virus has done to some people. Now, the way it has seemed to affect professional athletes as compared to just fitness instructors, personal trainers, is a bit different. I saw a picture of this guy in Washington who was I believe he was he was an instructor, who was a personal trainer, I believe. He was a very built man. I don't remember his age, but he was a built man, maybe in his 30s, 40s, something along those lines. I saw his before and after photos. Before COVID, this guy was jacked, had big muscles, he was a built man. After COVID, he had no muscles. His muscles were gone. And like I'm saying, I think there's a difference with how this is affecting professional athletes as compared to how it is affecting people such as just your average everyday trainer. But what if that was to happen to one of these? What if that had happened to Von Miller? Do you want to take that chance? I don't know. To these kids, do you want them to take that chance? I don't know if it's worth it. It could ruin some of these guys' careers if they catch it. And I saw some posts about how they're thinking about making these kids sign waivers so that they can play. If I'm one of these players, I am going to seriously think about this, and I'm going to really consider my career. And I'm going to think about, is it worth it? Is it worth it to play? I think the parents need to step in, and they need to really talk to their kids about whether or not it's worth it to do this. Because this is bigger than just sports. This is about lives. This virus has killed 500,000 people. It's infected over 10 million. So even if you want to say that the odds of it killing you isn't good, and I forgot what country it is, but there was a country out there that was considering people that died from it to be cured. So even the cured numbers are skewed. Because they're dead, they technically no longer have it. I just think this is a really big deal. And this sucks for this sucks for everybody, right? This sucks for these kids who are trying to make it big into the NFL, who are trying to make pro careers. This sucks for the high school kids who were looking to get into college, whose seasons got cut short, who didn't get enough tape on, who are going to have to go walk on somewhere, try and go compete to get a scholarship. this has ruined a lot of people's chances. This has hurt a lot of lives. This has ruined a lot of plans. Hell, this ruined some of my plans when it came to this year, right? And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to sound selfish or anything. I hope that doesn't sound selfish. But even for me, this ruined some of my plans. I'm fresh out of college. I had all these plans still for my senior year. I had all these things that I wanted to do, and I didn't get to do it. A lot of it. And I'm looking at this, I want to get into sports broadcasting. This is something I really, really want to do. I wanted to do this for years. I had my radio show at my college. My radio show, I had to stop it early. I was about 6 months into doing it, and I had to stop it. Because I had to leave campus because of COVID. And now I'm looking at this, I'm graduated, I just happen to be one of the lucky members of the class of 2020, and there is a chance that sports, football, basketball, everything can't continue. There's a chance it could still get ruined because of COVID, and because America opened up too early. And I know this has kind of turned into a bit of a rant, but this is something that I do have a lot of strong feelings about, because this is so frustrating. There's a chance, because America handled this so poorly, and because they opened up too damn early, and there's this group of people out here who is anti-mask because they don't think the masks are cool, and they don't want to be muzzled like a dog. The cases are spreading. I mean, good grief, like I said, the NBA is reopening again in Florida. Florida right now is the mecca of COVID cases, because people there never quite took it seriously. It's Florida, right? It's hot. They want to be outside at the beach. It's just ridiculous. Now, I hear people talk about this, and it is true. Eventually, America does need to reopen, right? It can't stay closed forever. Businesses cannot stay closed forever. Because it's gonna be another depression. There's gonna be a recession. There are so many people that have lost their jobs, right? America can't stay closed forever. So when it comes to sports like the NFL, when it comes to sports like the NBA, when it comes to these sports that are these guys' careers, where they have families to feed, they have kids to take care of, they have mortgages to pay, I understand them at some point needing to reopen. But I do also understand the players that are opting out to play in the NBA because of COVID, I understand why they wouldn't want to play. I understand why they wouldn't want to put their families at risk. I understand the people who don't want to be away from their families for a month, 2 months, 3 months. Right? I totally get that. And then there's those who obviously are wanting to opt out for social justice reasons involving Black Lives Matter, which again, I understand. While I will be honest, as a person of color, I am iffy about that, just because social justice can be done at any time. It's not like Black Lives Matter just became a thing. It has been a thing. So I think it's a bit of a weaker argument. But for COVID reasons, totally get it. Totally get it. Especially for people who have ever had a respiratory issue in their life. I totally get it. And that's not up for debate. And I will never ever condemn somebody for valuing their health. When it comes to the NFL, I saw an article, again posted by Pro Football Talk, where there is the possibility that they will let fans attend these games if they sign a COVID waiver. Now, I would not be one of the people to sign one of these waivers. I'll go ahead and I'll be completely honest, put that on Front Street right now. I would not be one of these people signing a waiver to go to an NFL game during COVID. Oh, hell no. But you know what I think? I do believe that I would watch one of these games on TV, and I would see a lot more fans at these games than I'd like to admit. Or than I would like to actually see. I feel like there'd actually be a pretty good amount of people who would totally risk it because they just want to go to a game. They just want to get out of their house. They're sick and tired of being around family. They're sick and tired of being around the same people. They're sick and tired of not seeing people. You know, I don't know if the NFL is allowing players to opt out, and then again, I also don't know if these players really would want to opt out because, you know, I mean, that's money they're not going to get. Their contracts are not like NBA contracts. Their contracts are not like baseball contracts. They are not as big. They are not as long. I think there's a lot of things to worry about with this. And the chance of football not being a thing due to the sheer number of people who are going to play. And the numbers in college football are even bigger. They have even more people per team. There's more total staff. I mean, it's ridiculous. There is a real chance that sports can't be played. Like I said, are you going to tell me that if on every single team by week 4, by week 5, if every single team has like 8 or 9 players who have tested positive for COVID, are you going to tell me they're going to keep playing? Oh my God, no. There's no way they can. There's simply no way that they can. And that's a reality. I hope it doesn't come true. The testing with WHO saying that the worst is yet to come, but there's also, reports that there's 3 different kinds of vaccines that they're looking at that they've been having some success with. So I'm really, really hoping that they're able to come up with something. I'm hoping that testing does move along. I'm hoping they can find a vaccine soon so that the world can somewhat return to normal. But there's a chance, right? You got to be realistic. And the thing is that this virus has been doing things that we haven't seen. This is a lot of people's first pandemic. This is my first pandemic. So, what else is there to say? There is a real possibility that even with the bubble in the NBA, if just one player messes up and gets COVID because they leave the bubble, they sneak out of the bubble, oh my God. LeBron James gets COVID, Kawhi Leonard gets COVID, Giannis Antetokounmpo gets COVID. Oh geez, it will ruin everything. And again, it's a reality I wish we didn't live in, but sadly we do. Anyways, coming up next, we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. The Packers, they just signed their rookie Jordan Love, and I think his contract is very interesting and it's very telling. Stay tuned later, because we're going to get into my top 10 entities that this coming NFL season is the most important to. Stay tuned.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. In the last segment, we talked about the possibility of there not being an NFL season, the possibility of there not being a college football season, the possibility of there being an abbreviated season. Like I said during the last segment, I really hope that this doesn't come to fruition. I really hope that we do get these seasons in and that we can all enjoy football. We can have a little bit of a distraction from the mess that has been COVID and everything. But you gotta be realistic, and it's a thought that does have to be entertained, and I have to keep it real with the reality that we do live in. My voice is feeling a bit stronger now. I've kind of been working out my voice a bit. I don't know what it's been today. My voice has just been kind of iffy, so hopefully my voice now does sound better coming out. Even right here, it does sound better to me. I got some coffee, was able to warm my vocal cords a little bit more, so hopefully that sounds good. Before we get into Aaron Rodgers and the Packers and Jordan Love, though, I want to go ahead and talk about this because I feel like it would be very, very irresponsible of me if I didn't mention this, because I think that this is very, very big. This is kind of like breaking news, right? Kind of like a breaking news thing. So, FedEx, who owns Washington, D.C.'s field, has requested that the team change their name. Now, I'm not going to say the name of Washington's team's name. I just don't say it. I don't use the word. I can't bring myself to use the word. I think it is a derogatory slur. It is a racial slur that means nothing good. And I think it's a shame that the team has taken this long to even remotely entertain the possibility of changing the name. Daniel Snyder, the owner of Washington's football team, in 2013, I believe, he said that he would never change the name of his team. He would never, ever bring himself to do it. It would never happen under his watch. But FedEx has requested that they change the name. Multiple sponsors, I believe they got in contact with FedEx saying that they want this name to be changed. A coalition, well, I don't know if it's a coalition, but a group of Native Americans has called on the players to take a stand against the team to request that the name be changed. And I just feel like if Snyder is seriously going to remain the owner of this team, he has to change the name. Nike has removed all of their merchandise from the site. There's just no way that Daniel Snyder can keep the name of this team what it is. There's no way. So here's what I think is going to happen with Washington. Either Daniel Snyder is going to sell this team, and he's going to make the name change under the watch of another owner, or he's going to suck it up, and he's going to change the name of this team. If he doesn't, and he tries to play this season with the name being the same thing, I think it will not go well. And to anybody, let me be very, very clear. To anybody who sits back and says to themselves, well, I don't think of the name as a racial slur. I don't think about the name that way. When I think of the name, I think of the football team. Here's my first question to you. Are you Native American? If your answer to that question is anything other than yes, then your opinion does not matter, right? If you're not Native American, your opinion about the name really doesn't matter because the name doesn't affect you. And I'm not Native American either. So the name, it doesn't matter really even what I think, but I am just on the side of Native Americans. If they think the name is offensive, that is what matters. If you don't know the history of Native Americans, if you don't know what the meaning of that word is, it basically means a dead Native American. It's nothing good. It's nothing good. And I think anyone who tries to just argue that's just not how they think of the term, I think it's a very, very lame excuse. It's a very, very lame reason. I don't think there's any credence to it. Native Americans want it changed, and that's what matters. 2020, as weird as this year has been, as hectic as this year has been, there's been a lot of good change, whether it be the Confederate flag being taken down across America. And yes, of course, there's always going to be the group that's going to riot and they want to boycott. And I think it's, the boycott crowd is pointless. NASCAR's ratings are up since they've gotten rid of the flag. So, boycott crowd is losing, really, with all the statues being taken down. And I thought the next step would be Washington's football team. They need to change their name. And while we're at it, right, while we're talking about this kind of stuff, can we address the Chiefs and their tomahawk chop and their call? Look, watching their arena in unison do the chop and do the call, I think is an amazing sight because it's so cool. It sounds so cool. It looks so cool. But I have heard from Native Americans that they think that's very offensive. And while I haven't heard anything about the Chiefs' name, but I have heard that they think that call is offensive. I think if Native Americans even wanted to change that, I think it's they wanted them to stop doing it. I think that's something that we do need to entertain. But anyways, I just wanted to talk about that a bit. I thought it'd be very, very irresponsible of me if I didn't mention that. Anyways, let's go and get into some Packers, some Aaron Rodgers, right? So the Packers made a splash in the draft when they drafted Jordan Love. And I think the even bigger splash was the fact that they didn't just draft him at their spot, right? They didn't just stand pat with their pick. They actually traded up to get him. I don't know how many spots they traded up from. I think they traded up maybe 4 spots to go get him with the 26th overall pick. So they just now signed him to a deal, and they signed him to a 4-year, I'll round up a bit here. They signed him to a 4-year, $12.4 million contract with a signing bonus of $6.6 million, and it's fully guaranteed. Now, when you hear guaranteed and fully guaranteed, sometimes the numbers become skewed. Understand that when the word fully is in front of the guaranteed, that means that literally no matter what, that money is going to be in that player's bank account. So Jordan Love is going to get all of that money. What is that in total? That's around $19 million. So he's gonna be able to buy a lot of Gucci bags, okay? But this is the first time that a number 26 pick has ever gotten a fully guaranteed contract. I think if I was to do a little bit more research on this, I could probably find this is the first time that a player out of the top 10 has gotten a fully guaranteed contract. That's just not something that usually happens. And I think that says a lot of things. I think that says, one, that the Packers, they really like Jordan Love. They really like this kid. And Aaron Rodgers has always been more of a thinker, right? What's some of the knocks against him? He's arrogant, he's cocky, he has no problem calling out his teammates, he doesn't always give the PC answer. And I think it's because Aaron Rodgers is a thinker. He's always been a bit more progressive when it comes to things such as the anthem. He never really gave a PC answer. He gave a thoughtful answer about what he thought when it came to the protest and about how he thought that the protest was right. And he didn't think it was disrespectful to the anthem, right? Aaron Rodgers has just always shown that he is more of a thinker. And I've always appreciated that. I like to hear my athletes think. I don't want to just hear PC garbage. I want to hear what they have to say. But with that being said, I think Aaron Rodgers could see that contract that they just gave Jordan Love, and I can't imagine he's going to be very happy about that. You remember, he said he would like it if the team would draft players that can help them win now. Well, Jordan Love doesn't do that. And all the talk about him being a gadget guy, all the talk about him being a Taysom Hill. Look, there's very few quarterbacks in the NFL that I believe could do what Taysom Hill does. And obviously Philadelphia, they drafted Jalen Hurts. They kind of want to use him as a Taysom Hill. I think that Jalen Hurts is maybe one of the only other quarterbacks who could really do what Taysom Hill does. Taysom Hill, he is an athlete playing quarterback. Jordan Love, yes, he's an athlete, but I don't think he's Taysom Hill. So I think that notion is just kind of ridiculous. Here's some things about Aaron Rodgers, though, right? Because Aaron Rodgers is 36 years old. Okay? Since 2016, he has been in the decline. Whether it be he's been getting injured, whether it be just his play as a whole has kind of evaporated, he hasn't looked like the same player. But before we get into just some of his stats, I remember there was a point in time where I would watch Aaron Rodgers play. 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, I would watch him play and I would think to myself, that is the best quarterback I have ever seen in my life. I think about 2016 when he said, we're going to run the table. And he ran the table with his team and took a Packers team to the playoffs that I really think had no freaking business being in the playoffs. I remember when I watched him face the Cardinals in the playoffs when during the magical Carson Palmer season, and he threw back-to-back Hail Mary passes to tie the game. And it was just incredible. And I'm watching this guy, I'm like, oh my God. I remember watching the Hail Mary against Detroit, right? This is a game. They need to win these games. And they get it. I remember watching Aaron Rodgers thinking to myself, that is the best quarterback I've ever seen. Aaron Rodgers has been to one Super Bowl. He won it, but he's been to one Super Bowl. Eli Manning's been to two. Ben Roethlisberger has been to two. Peyton Manning has been to, four? I believe 4. 2 with Denver. Yeah, and 2 with Indianapolis. Russell Wilson has been to 2. Obviously, Tom Brady, he's been... Aaron Rodgers, you can make an argument he's better than all of those guys from a talent standpoint. He's been to 1. His postseason record is 10-8. That's not good. And a large part of the reason why it is that his record is what it is and why they haven't been back to a Super Bowl. Obviously, there was the game against the debacle against Seattle. Probably should have won it. But it's because of his defenses. I went back and I started looking at the Packers' defenses. Now, last year they were 9th. But if we want to go back, so for 2018 and down, if we want to go back to his rankings, it's 22, 26, 21, 12, 14, 25, 11, 9, 2. In 2010, the year that they won the Super Bowl. So the one time you gave Aaron Rodgers an elite defense, he won the frickin' Super Bowl. Every other year, even though 11 is not bad and 12 is not bad, those aren't necessarily great. You're in the top half of the NFL. But it's not great. The Packers have always had especially when you take all those rankings and you figure out the average of it, his average defense over the last decade has been 16th. So, yeah, not great. Basically, you're in the middle of the pack. The Packers have had this really dumb philosophy of they wouldn't sign free agents. They wanted to draft their players. They didn't want to go grab these good established players in free agency. No. No, we're going to do homegrown talent. We got Aaron Rodgers throwing to Geronimo Allison. And old Jimmy Graham. And Valdez Scantling. What? Devontae Adams finally turned himself into one of the top receivers in the league, but that's the one guy. You got rid of Jordy Nelson probably a year when Aaron Rodgers still could have used him. I think that the Packers' time with Aaron Rodgers has been a catastrophic failure. Is basically what I'm saying. I think the time with Aaron Rodgers has been a failure. You have this much talent in this guy. You've had this generational talent, and what do you have to show for it? Aaron Rodgers for his career has a 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. That is an NFL record. For his career, he has a 102.4 passer rating. That is an NFL record. He has the record for the most consecutive passes without an interception. It's like 428, something like that. He has the lowest interception ratio in NFL history. He's a Super Bowl champ, a Super Bowl MVP. He's a 2-time MVP, an 8-time Pro Bowler, a 2-time first-team All-Pro. The most interceptions Aaron Rodgers has ever thrown in a season was 13. That was his first year starting. Think about that. That was his first year starting. Now, they've drawn the comparison with them drafting Jordan Love to what happened with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. Remember, they had Brett Favre. Brett Favre was kind of iffy on whether or not he wanted to retire. Wasn't looking that great. Then eventually they drafted Aaron Rodgers, the bottom of the first round, and he sat for 3 years. And then finally, Brett Favre eventually said, he was, wanted to retire, and they were planning to get into the season with Aaron Rodgers, but then Favre wanted to come back, and the Packers basically said, no. And then the rest is history, right? You went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. It's like going from Joe Montana to Steve Young, right? That just doesn't happen. From Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck. That kind of stuff just doesn't happen. And between those two, between Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, you have 2 Super Bowl championships. I mean, that's terrible. In my mind, that's terrible. You should have more than that. Those 2 guys, how talented they are. And I think Aaron Rodgers is better than Brett Favre. Some people will disagree with that. I think Aaron Rodgers is better than Brett Favre. Brett Favre was a turnover machine. Yes, of course, he's a gunslinger. It's the way he played. He's drawing up plays in the dirt. But I will take Aaron Rodgers over Brett Favre. So I look at this coming season for the Packers. Their draft was not good. They didn't give Rodgers any receiver. They drafted a running back who is looked at as being really a pure running back, not a pass catcher. All those receivers in the draft who were looked at as being guys who could start instantly, get these guys who could start right out the gate. You didn't get any of them. I don't know what are you expecting? In this last season, especially you looked at Aaron Rodgers, he struggled. This was not a good season for him. By his standard, his QBR, I think, was the lowest of his career, or one of the lowest of his career. His throwaways they've been going up. And a reoccurring theme I have seen in articles about Aaron Rodgers is coaches, whether it be people who've played with him, for just coaches who have played against him, who have watched the game for a long time, they see that he is more timid when it comes to throwing the ball downfield, right? Like, he's not giving his guys the chances. He has shown he would rather throw the ball away than take a shot downfield. Now, why is this? I don't exactly know. I don't know if it's a thing of he's stat padding. He doesn't want to risk an interception because it looks prettier on the stat sheet to see that he has 25 touchdowns and 4 picks. I don't know what it is. But I have noticed the same exact thing. When I watch Aaron Rodgers now, I don't see the same quarterback I saw in 2016 or 2015 or 2014. I don't see that guy. I don't see a guy who is carrying his team. I see a guy now where father time has been catching up to him. And this would be the perfect time, especially you just extended Aaron Rodgers. This would be the perfect time to take this guy and surround him with whatever talent it is that you can. This would be the perfect time to draft the best players, to acquire the best players in free agency that you can, and to try and maximize this window you have with one of the greatest talents at quarterback that there's ever been. But instead, the Packers go into the draft. They draft a quarterback that they traded up to get. They draft a running back that Pro Football Focus had going in like the 6th round, in the 2nd round. You drafted a tight end that some people think is more of like a fullback than a tight end. It was just not a good draft. I didn't understand the draft. I think the Packers made a mistake, and I just think that this season is not going to be as smooth as it could have been. I don't know. If Aaron Rodgers struggles, do they put Jordan Love in? I don't know if they would. I don't know if they'd want to risk that, because I think as soon as they would do that, I think that would be the end of Aaron Rodgers' time in Green Bay. But what do we always hear from these coaches? Coaches always say, we don't want to put our young guy in. We don't want to put the rookie in. We want them to sit. We want them to learn. We want them to see the pace of the game. We want them to just be a sponge to the quarterback. But then what do we always end up seeing? At some point in time, they play. At some point in time, these dudes play. Josh Allen wasn't supposed to play ever. The Bills put him in. Sam Darnold, originally, he wasn't supposed to start. They started him day number 1 his rookie year. Baker Mayfield, he wasn't supposed to see the field at all. He got to see it, and the rest is history. Patrick Mahomes, he actually did get to sit out his rookie year until the last game, but then, and you can say that was the last true quarterback that got to sit out a season and learn. And you see what it's done for Mahomes. So will they do it for Jordan Love? I don't know. But if the Packers were really hoping that they could continue to win with Aaron Rodgers for this season, the next season, however long it's left that they really want to keep him around, I do not believe drafting Jordan Love was the best move to do so. But however, I also understand Aaron Rodgers is 36. He's on the decline. If you think that Jordan Love could be your Aaron Rodgers to the Brett Favre situation V2, then I guess you do it. And you just, you take whatever it is that's going to come with it. Anyways, coming up next, final topic. My top 10 entities in the NFL that this season means the most to. Stick around. I think you're going to love my list. I've got some surprises on it that I don't believe anyone has thought about. I can't wait to give it to you guys. That up next.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. In the last segment, we talked about Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, them drafting Jordan Love, how I felt about the whole thing, how I feel like this could impact their season, overall how the Packers handled their tenure with Aaron Rodgers. I also had a little bit of a breaking news kind of story. I talked a bit about Washington DC's football team, the drama that's going on right now, revolving around them changing their team's name. I think it should be changed. I don't think that's up for debate. And by all accounts, with everything that's happening, I believe they're going to change the name. But, nonetheless, final segment. I got a cool list for you guys. I'm excited for this. My top 10 entities in the NFL that this season matters to the most. So we're going to go from 10 to 1, 10 being who it matters to the least, 1 being where the house is on fire. And you better make the most of this season because it could really impact your future. So I'm excited to do this. I got some sneaky choices in here. I think you're going to be surprised. So we'll start at number 10. Bill Belichick. Look, this season isn't going to make or break his career, right? It's not like after the season, if they don't go to the Super Bowl, that Bill's going to get fired and that his ranking among coaches all time is going to change, right? He's still either going to be the first or second best coach ever. It all depends on how much credence you want to give to the cheating scandals and if you want to dock him for that. I would not debate anybody on that because I think that's very, very fair. But hey, he has 6 Super Bowl championships. He's been to 9, right? He has some leeway with New England. At least he should have some leeway. And no one should expect Bill Belichick and Jared Stidham or Cam Newton, whoever's quarterbacking, no one should expect him to go into the season, win 12 or 13 games, and go to the Super Bowl. That's just unrealistic, right? I mean, that would just be ridiculous. I think the most important thing for Bill Belichick in this, what seems to be kind of like an experiment year with facing on paper the toughest schedule based on the records of the teams last year. The most important thing for him is that they look competitive, that his team looks like they know what they're doing. If he can finish this season 6-10, 7-9, 8-8, 9-7, if he can even make it to the playoffs, I think this is a successful season, even if they don't win a playoff game. I think that's it. That is a successful season. I think it shows everyone that he can truly coach, even though I don't think he has to prove that, but it will show those who doubt that he can truly coach, that he knows what he's doing. The most important thing is that his team looks competitive and not a mess. And let's also be honest though, right? This is going to depend a lot on what Tom Brady in Tampa Bay is doing, right? If Tom Brady is lighting up the world in Tampa Bay and Bill Belichick is struggling, it's going to look that much worse for Bill, because people are going to sit there and say, oh, hey, look at Tom. Tom's looking like Tom. Bill, what are you doing? You know, what's going on there? So, as much as I think this season is important to Bill, I have him at 10, but because of his resume, because of the championships, because of the leeway he has gained in my mind with the Boston area, I just, this season isn't going to make or break him. But, speaking of Tom Brady, number 9, Tom Brady. He has 2 years left. Alright? He has the 2-year deal with Tampa Bay. I do not believe he will extend after that with any team. Whether it be Tampa Bay or New England, I don't know. I don't think he will do anything. I think that after these 2 years, he will retire. And it's not because, excuse me, it's not because he's going to be 45. It's not because he's older. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with his wife, Giselle. I don't know what the magazine is called. I don't know. Was it the Inquisitor? I have no clue. Whatever. The gossip magazines that you see all the time when you go to check out that I just always kind of scan over quickly and I never grab. I don't want to touch it because I just don't care. The articles were posted about their relationship. The headlines were there. Giselle, unhappy with Tom Brady. Giselle and Tom, they're going through some struggles. Giselle leaves Tom a letter. She wrote him a letter, basically stating, Tommy, you're not doing enough. I feel like I'm doing all the work. I'm home, you're away, even when you are home, it's football, football, football. This is supposed to be a partnership. We're supposed to be a team, and I feel like I'm doing everything. When a woman writes you a letter, when your wife writes you a letter, that's not good. That means she's got a foot out the door. Right? That is basically the final call to you to get your crap together. And Tom has talked about it. He said he keeps the letter. He still has the letter. He reads it every now and then because it was a very touching letter and it crushed him to read. But he realized he needed to do better at home. So I think that he has these last 2 years. It's his final payday and he needs to make the most of it. This season, I just think it's important because next season he's just going to be older and that means he has 1 more year. He has the weapons he has now. He has a good offensive line, an underrated defense. Now, the thing with Bruce Arians is that quarterbacks under Bruce Arians in their first year always lead the league in turnover-worthy plays. Now, could he change the offense a bit, make it a bit more of a dink-and-dunk offense? He could, but that's never been Bruce Arians' style. So again, I think that if Bill Belichick is lighting up the world with Cam or Jared Stidham, if he's 8-0, somehow when Tom Brady is struggling, it will mean that much more for Bill. People will come that much harder down on Tom Brady. But again, Tom Brady, 6 championships. I don't think that this season's going to make or break his legacy. Like I said, he's got 2 more years. So it'll be interesting to see how it is that all unfolds. But I have him at 9. Number 8, Drew Brees. Look, this is Drew's last year. At the Pro Bowl, Drew Brees was telling people, I'm retiring. Yeah, no, this is my last year. And then Sean Payton and the Saints talked him out of it, talked him into coming back 1 more year, talked him into, come on guys, let's run it back 1 more time. We still got all the pieces. Let's try this. Normally, I wouldn't have even had him on this list if it wasn't for this, though. His anthem comment. When he made that comment, he alienated so many people. He got called out by so many people in the sports world. LeBron James called him out. Michael Thomas, his favorite receiver, called him out. Alvin Kamara, Malcolm Jenkins, Emmanuel Sanders. He just got there. He's never played with Drew Brees before. You have other defensive players. I think Malik Jackson, the Eagles, they do play the Saints. I think Malik Jackson, he said he can't wait. He doesn't forgive Drew Brees. He can't wait to play him. Zadarius Smith, edge rusher, really good edge rusher for the Packers. He posted on the schedule when they face the Saints, and he can't wait to get his hands on Drew Brees. If this Saints season does not go the way that I think a lot of people imagined it going, which was they were going to win the division again, they would probably make another playoff run, they could even make it to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. If this season goes haywire, let's just say, they don't make the playoffs. Everyone is going to talk about those anthem comments, and they're going to say, did Drew Brees ruin his last season with the Saints? If they look just confused the whole season, but they still make the playoffs and then they don't look competitive, it's going to be the same thing. People will say, did those anthem comments ruin Drew Brees' final season? Is it going to ruin where he ranks all time? No. He is still probably going to finish his career as the most prolific passer in NFL history. Most 5,000-yard seasons, most touchdown passes, that will still most likely belong to Drew Brees. Well, the 5,000-yard seasons will. But those comments he made, Drew, you better hope that this season goes good for you, man. This is your swan song. If this season backfires on you, you won't hear the end of it when it comes to your comments. Even though he's apologized and I forgive him, other people forgiven him, those comments will ring in the back of people's head. Number 7, Lamar Jackson. Look, he's the MVP, right? Which is great. I don't think that this season is going to mean that that the Ravens are going to look for a new quarterback, right? He just won it. He's going to be the cover on Madden. I don't think that this season means whether or not the Ravens are successful or not, that they're going to look for a new quarterback and that the fans are just going to completely give up on him. But what I do think is that Lamar Jackson needs to show up in the playoffs. He's 0-2 in the playoffs, and he lost to 2 teams that I don't think anybody really had them losing to. Now, the Chargers, when they faced him his rookie year, they couldn't stop Lamar. Lamar did kind of whatever he wanted. They couldn't figure out how to stop him. Last year, they lost to Tennessee. The Ravens ran roughshod over everybody, and they lost to Tennessee. And he came out and said that he underestimated Tennessee. Well, Lamar, you better not underestimate your next opponent. I would imagine that the Ravens are going to make the playoffs again. They've basically returned the roster. Their defense, if anything, has gotten better, adding Calais Campbell. Lamar needs to win a playoff game. He needs to validate his MVP. If in his first 3 years he's got, MVP, should have probably had Offensive Player of the Year, but they gave it to Michael Thomas. But he has an MVP, he's got the Madden cover athlete, and you're telling me he's 0-3 in the playoffs? No, that just can't happen. Again, I don't think the Ravens would start looking for another quarterback, but the public image of Lamar, I think, will be very, very trashed if he is 0-3 in his first 3 seasons. And number 6, Derek Carr. Now, this is one of my shockers, right? I don't think many people are thinking about Derek Carr. Do people remember that the Raiders are now in Vegas? Do people remember what kind of town Vegas is? Vegas is a party city. There are better things to do in Vegas than watch a mediocre football team, look, I think Derek Carr's a good quarterback, but he doesn't always show it, right? There's questions about his mental toughness, what Stephen A. and Max Kellerman were talking about him on TV, criticizing him, saying whether or not he wanted it. Derek Carr took to Twitter and challenged them to a boxing match. I'm not in the business, really, of questioning people's mental toughness, but, dude, you do that, that's a problem. I gotta look at you a bit sideways there. What are you doing? You're challenging 2 men in their 50s, late 40s, to a boxing match? Grow up. They signed Marcus Mariota to be the backup. I will go to my grave thinking that Marcus Mariota can be a franchise quarterback if a team just lets him be him. If a team will just let him play his style of football, I will go to my grave thinking that he can be a franchise quarterback. Until I see a team give him that chance, I'll die on this pedestal. If the Raiders are sucking, will they go to Marcus Mariota? Probably. there's already reports, John Gruden, not really a fan of Derek Carr, even though he might say something different, not really a fan of Derek Carr. There's better things to do there. What's one of the problems that the Chargers are having in LA? There's too many things to do in LA. It's the same problem that the freaking Rams are having. There's too many things to do in LA. Lakers, beaches, Dodgers. There's better things to do. In Vegas, casinos. It's Vegas. They need to be competitive. Derek Carr, you better look good. You better recapture your 2016 form when you were an MVP candidate, because I feel like this could be your last season as a Raider. Number 5, Sam Darnold. Look, Sam Darnold was the number 3 overall pick. He was looked at as being probably he was supposed to grade out to be the best quarterback in his draft. At this point in time, you can essentially say he is the 3rd best quarterback in his draft. Baker Mayfield has had a better season than him his rookie year than Darnold has ever had. Josh Allen, while his numbers passing wise not necessarily as like efficient as Darnold, his QBR is only a little bit better than Darnold. But Allen took his team to the playoffs. Darnold hasn't done that yet. And now, this is the thing, right? Do I think that the Jets have surrounded Darnold with the best pieces? Hell no. I think that the Jets have done him a serious disservice. They haven't given him an offensive line. They haven't given him a true number 1 receiver. His defenses are good. Who the hell is his tight end? It's Herndon. But even then, it doesn't seem like they seem to know how to use their players. Their running back situation isn't great. I mean, I don't feel like he's gotten a fair shot, but here's my thing. Are you going to tell me that if the Jets have the number 1, number 2, number 3 overall pick again, and they have a chance to draft Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields, you're telling me they won't take that chance? Move Darnold off to another team? Because he'll get a shot. I think that Darnold's attitude has been superb off the field and on the field. I think he will get another chance. But his time with the Jets, his career completion percentage is 59.9%. That is basically Cam Newton's. And people kill Cam for not being accurate. It is the same as Sam Darnold's. So, he's probably he's the 4th best quarterback by QBR in this division. I'm just saying, I think there's a real chance that even after his 3rd year, as unfair as it might be, they could move on from Sam Darnold. Number 4, Aaron Rodgers. Look, like I said, they gave Jordan Love a fully guaranteed deal. They clearly really like Jordan Love. He has comparisons to Patrick Mahomes, even though I think it's kind of ridiculous to compare him to Patrick Mahomes. Like, we didn't see Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes, so who am I to say anything about Jordan Love, right? Like I said, his last great season, 2016. Since then, he's been in decline, whether it be because of injuries or whatever. Him not letting the ball rip anymore, not taking the chances, being too conservative, he's throwing the ball away too much. After this season, I think that next year is the last year that the Packers would really have a penalty with his money. But that doesn't mean that they want to go ahead and move on from him. If Aaron Rodgers is prickly, if he's not getting along with his head coach this season, if there's rumblings about some stuff going on with Jordan Love, even though, by all accounts, according to Rodgers and Love, their relationship so far has been very, very good, I just think there is a chance Green Bay really loves Jordan Love, and if this season doesn't pan out the exact way that they want it to, they could move on. When you draft a quarterback in the 1st round, you don't want him to just sit on the bench. You want this dude to play. So I would not be surprised if after this season, let's just say they go to the playoffs, they get bounced in their first game, or maybe they just miss the playoffs. If Rodgers' numbers just don't look good, I hit my mic there accidentally, sorry if you heard that, I would not be surprised if they went ahead and moved on from him. Number 3, Baker Mayfield. Now, some people might be a bit surprised at this, but with Baker, here's my reason why I have him at 3, right? He has a loaded offense. Their offense is outstanding. 2 elite running backs, 2 elite receivers. Their tight end situation is good with Hooper. I'm still kind of waiting for Njoku to prove something. There's a lot of people, for whatever reason, who are crowning Njoku as a great tight end. I don't think he's a great tight end. I think he has a lot to prove. What has he really shown to say he's a great tight end? their offensive line on paper is fixed. They signed Conklin. I like that. But their tackle, they're moving him to a position he didn't play in college. He played right. They're moving him to left. We'll see if that works out. Joe Thomas really likes him, and I love Joe Thomas. So I will not doubt the future Hall of Famer on his view of an offensive lineman. But here's the thing with Baker. Last season, he wouldn't shut up. He put on a lot of fat, not muscle, because he thought he needed to bulk up, so he ate more. Instead of hitting the gym, he just ate more. He criticized his doctors. He became a turnover machine last year. There's a lot of people who think that he's a more talented Johnny Manziel, but nonetheless, he's Johnny Manziel. I don't know if I would say that, but this is not the same regime that drafted him. They have Case Keenum in the back there. Stefanski knows what Case Keenum can do. They know Case Keenum is a professional. He is shown to be more professional than Baker. Now, Baker Mayfield's attitude has been very, very different this offseason. He is talking about how he wants to change the narrative. He wants to work. He wants to stop talking. We will see what happens. I think the biggest thing is, even if the Browns don't win their division, even if they don't make the playoffs, Baker's numbers just need to look better. The offense itself needs to look better. Because I think if Baker looks like he did last year, there's a chance that he will forever be a backup on teams. I don't know if another team is going to want to give him a shot to be their starter. I really don't. Why would you want to give some loudmouth quarterback who's a turnover machine the chance to be a starter again, right? No team wanted to give Johnny Manziel a chance to be a starter again, and even though I think he's better than Johnny Manziel, the mouth is still there. The attitude's still there. If he doesn't look better, I think this could be Baker's last season really being a starter. And again, do I think it's fair? No. He's on his 4th head coach. You can't succeed like that. You just can't succeed. He hasn't had any stability. He and Donald have had zero stability. But sometimes that's just the breaks of the business, right? And you just gotta kind of keep it at that. Number 2, Dak Prescott. Some people probably thought that he'd be number 1. No, I have him at number 2. Look, it's obvious, right? He's franchise tagged. He wants to get a massive payday. So this season is going to dictate a lot. Last season, he was 1-6 against playoff teams. What? So you got those 8 wins basically beating bad teams. You couldn't beat the good teams. I think the one team he did beat was, I think his one win against playoff teams was the Eagles at the beginning of the season. They lost to a beaten up, battered, just shouldn't have even been in the playoffs Eagles team when Carson Wentz was throwing to the who's who of receivers and running backs. Well, I think their top receiver at the time was a former college quarterback. I mean, that's what they were working with, and Dak couldn't beat that team. Look, his offense is stacked. Travis Frederick retiring is a big deal, and I think that's going to hurt their offensive line. They went ahead and drafted the guy, so we'll see how that all works out. But other than that, new head coach, he's an offensive wizard, quote, wizard. So we'll see how this works. Dak, was it Jason Garrett, or was it you? If Dak doesn't have a good season, there's no way he's going to be able to command the money that's being reported that he wants, which is basically, some odd $40 million. Patrick Mahomes kind of money. This season's big for Dak. If he gets hurt, if this franchise tag season doesn't go great, we saw what happened with Kirk Cousins. It can be a very, very unfortunate situation. So I got Dak at number 2. And number 1, and this might be the biggest shock of them all. At number 1, the Chiefs. This season, in my mind, means the most for the Chiefs. Why? I think it's very simple. This is the last time that they're going to have Patrick Mahomes on the cheap. They will never ever have Patrick Mahomes this cheap again. After this season, they are going to pay Patrick Mahomes the most money that any player in NFL history has ever made. And we saw what happened when Seattle paid Russell Wilson. Saw what happened when they paid Aaron Rodgers. Eventually, you need to start hitting on all of your draft picks. You can't just afford anybody in free agency. You can't just afford to re-sign everybody. You need to hit on draft picks. There's people who think that the Packers' tenure with Rodgers has been a failure because they've only won one Super Bowl. People who think that the tenure with Russell Wilson has been a failure because he's only won one Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes could be more talented than both of them. When it's all said and done, Patrick Mahomes could be the most talented quarterback in NFL history. If he's only been to one Super Bowl in his career, if he has only won one Super Bowl in his career, that's huge. This is the last time the Chiefs have him cheap. They need to make the most of this season. They have returned basically every starter on their team, especially on offense. Still got Kelsey, still got Hill, still got the running backs. You even drafted a running back who's looked at as being good. Was it Clyde Edwards-Helaire? You still got Mahomes. You got him cheap one more year, guys. Andy Reid, Brett Veach, make the most of this season, because he will never ever be this cheap again. But anyways, that is my top 10. I'm sure some of you probably very strongly disagree with it. I'm sure there's some people who are looking at my number 1 selection, probably thinking, what the hell? My honorable mentions are Bill O'Brien and Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, because he has stayed injured. He hasn't been able to not get hurt every season in the NFL, and they drafted Jalen Hurts to be his backup. If he gets hurt again and Hurts starts playing well, is there a chance that Hurts takes over if he can show he's more sturdy? Maybe. Who knows? Bill O'Brien, I think it's just that Bill O'Brien, the GM, has done Bill O'Brien, the head coach, a disservice. You traded away D-Hop. You trade and for David Johnson, which is disgusting. Their offensive line has never really gotten right. Deshaun Watson has been getting hurt, lung issues, can't fly on a plane. I just think that this season means a lot. And on every coach ranking, they have Bill O'Brien as the worst head coach. And I don't quite understand that. In his tenure with the Texans, he finished second, first, fourth, first in his division. And yet they still think he's the worst head coach. I don't know. It sounds good. His resume sounds good, but maybe I'm just wrong. I don't know. All right. We covered quite a bit today. Hopefully you all enjoyed. Hopefully this demo was good. Oh God. Thank you for listening to the GSMC football podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us out. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you. And have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.